Happy Monday. Welcome to Carlie's Couch.
Or whatever day you listen, welcome.
You know, this is the last episode of November 2019.
Sheesh.
Almost out of here. It's been moving kind of fast. And so, as we go through some of the next episodes, we're kind of thinking about, what's been going on this year, how we've done. And one of the things that keeps coming up a lot, just in conversation with Carlie and myself, is just giving yourself credit, right? Because a lot of times when you're coming together and you're brainstorming or trying to think of business ideas and stuff like that, it's real easy for us to just think about the things we have to do and things we need to do. And, there's always so much to do. But it's stop and thinking about all the things you've done and giving yourself more credit about that too. So that's what we want to talk about today, just celebrating yourself more.
Yeah, and giving yourself the opportunity to enjoy where you are and reflect back. And I guess it's like enjoying the little moments, because sometimes we're so focused on the end goal or the finish line or the next level that we don't celebrate or give ourselves credit for where we currently are. And looking back, man, look how many floors we done came up, but we're just not happy because we're not at that top floor. And I had a thing happen yesterday that kind of made me think about it. Mm-hmm. So I spoke on a panel that was super awesome at USC about building your businesses or building your brand through social media. And I caught and then I ended up speaking at another event synchronistically right after that was about self-care. So of course that was meant for me. And I caught one of my friends because I was really excited, and I just wanted to talk about those moments of being in flow where you're fully engaged and it's something that recharges you and excites you, and you just get kind of high off of it. And I was like, I want to remember this moment whenever I'm struggling or whenever I'm I don't know how I'm going to do this thing. And Ashley, shout out to Ashley. Ashley was like, yeah, you got to celebrate these things. I was like, yeah, you got to celebrate stuff even when it's small. And she was just like, well, why did you call it small? Why did you think that this was small? Ashley. Yeah, shout out to A. She going to come on the podcast. She's dope and is doing a lot of great things in the cannabis industry. So, y'all look forward to that. But she said that, and I was like, damn, you right, fam. And so I thought it was something that we could talk about here.
Mm-hmm. Because sometimes we say things a certain way without really hearing what we're saying or thinking about what we're saying. And that's interesting that you would have somebody who's listening in that way where, to them, it's oh, you need to step out of yourself to really see, why would you say that? Or for them to really see it from an outside view, it's it's not small at all. But in that case, why do you think that you thought it was small? Or not even that you really thought that, but you know what I mean? Why it came out that way.
Well, because I think because I still have so much stuff to do. I feel like this is still just the beginning of so many things. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, this day was amazing. It was a phenomenal day. And I did so many things that I love, from teaching in the morning to a big pitch meeting with a company hopefully I'm working for in the future, manifesting that. And then speaking on 2 panels in an event, teaching a meditation, talking about self-care. That's literally an ideal day for me.
Right.
And that's what I love to do. And I was just like, I called it small. And she was like, why'd you say that? And I was like, because I kind of expect great things from myself. I expect myself, this is a level of expectation that I have. But she was like, but you can't ever discount any moment when you're working in purpose and when you're walking in your alignment and your passion and doing things that you care about. You can't ever count any of those as small. And it was a good self-check for me, because I think so often, myself included, but a lot of people can get caught up in not being somewhere yet, or it not looking how you want it to look yet, that you completely diminish kind of where you are. And it's important to take note of those things and to give yourself credit for the progress that you've made.
Absolutely. So guys, we hope you enjoyed that episode. No, but so listening to that story, that's a real example, right, of how we do this kind of frequently, and you may be doing it without really noticing. And so what we're going to talk about today is, what does it mean to give yourself credit? Why might you not be giving yourself credit? How can you? And what are some things you can do to stop diminishing your accomplishments and your wins? So getting into the nitty gritty of it, would you say that you do give yourself credit?
Sometimes. You actually helped me realize that I wasn't on an episode, because it's funny because I always thought that I did. And then during an episode, you were asking me what I wanted to do. And I started talking. You were like, well, don't you already do that stuff already? Why don't you give yourself credit for the things that you're doing? And I was like,
bill is in the mail for that session.
Sheesh. man,
I'll give you a year to pay for it. Don't worry.
I mean, I'm gonna need 2 to afford your
Right.
rates though. But I started thinking about it because so often it's like, oh, of course I love myself. Of course I give myself credit. Of course I'm doing all these things. But when you really step back and look at it, like, no, I don't. And I was like, damn, why don't I do that?
It's kind of like the Ashley thing. Like sometimes just another person, us being aware of who you are and we know what you're doing and we know what you want to be or say you want to be. For us, we can say that and we can like call you out on it that way.
Yeah.
So, but everybody can't do that either. Like sometimes, and this is what kind of annoys me with the giving yourself credit thing. You know, sometimes people are like, oh man, you're killing it, this and this. And it's like, you really don't actually even know me or what I do or what I'm, you know what I mean? You see a couple pictures, but also it's like, yeah, that was cool. You know, what you saw, but you know what I mean? Sometimes you take it with a grain of salt, like when people say stuff to you. But for me, I would say that it's hard for me to answer the question, do I give myself enough credit? Because I don't even really think about that. Anytime somebody kind of gives me a compliment or says something about maybe what I'm doing. And also it's interesting that we're already just talking mostly about work with giving yourself credit.
That's also true.
So thinking about that, like my identity is so wrapped up in work a lot of times I'm catching. And even when we have our conversations, I'm like, well, outside of work, like, how does this apply to? That was a random caveat, but we'll maybe dive into that. But people will try to give me the credit, and I'll kind of feel like the same as what you just said. Like, yeah, that was cool, but, you have so much stuff to do. So I think it is hard for me to give myself credit.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of a time where I've actually heard you give yourself credit or talk about things in that way, but I haven't. Interestingly enough,
but I wouldn't start. I don't know what you might be looking for, a response to somebody else saying something to me, maybe, but it is. Yeah, it is something kind of like, all right, I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me.
I imagine people probably give you praise or like, oh man, you doing dope shit all the time. Like, how do you hear praise from others often?
Yeah, so very often I will get messages from people telling me stuff that they've done or what they've seen me doing, or, sometimes like your friends might send you a random message like, hey, I was thinking about you, like keep doing good things or big things. I had somebody who hit me from like 10 years ago randomly kind of with a message like that. And it's funny to me because when I do get those messages, well, it doesn't matter who it's from, actually. I was about to say people I know. But when I get those messages, it really does, like, help motivate me. I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, y'all don't realize, like, that's helpful to me sometimes, too. And that helps me to step out of myself to be like, yeah, like, I am kind of, doing that thing right now a little bit. But it's still always that balance of, but this stuff. So I get a lot. I think people mostly just kind of message me a lot.
Yeah, I was about to say, I got one the other day from Blair. Shout out to Bleezy. And it really just made my day. I was like, yo, like, thank you for thinking about me and for saying that. Because like you said, it does kind of take me outside of myself because we are ourselves and we do the same thing. Like we do our stuff every single day. So it just becomes a daily expectation. But for people that are outside to be like, yo, like keep working. Like we see you. Like it's confirmation for me along my journey. So thank y'all for sharing that. I already mentioned that you told me that, I need to give myself more credit. Has anyone ever told you that?
Not really. Maybe like a therapist or something. But that's because I spend a lot of time talking about or contemplating, like, how can I be more efficient or more productive and like those types of things. And so the more I'm always like in that space, if I'm always thinking about like, well, how can I be doing this better? Just like kind of how we talked about with affirmations, it's like, well, like, what's wrong with what you're doing now if you always get it done? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I really be like that. I'm like, no, you don't understand because, yeah, I'm getting it all done, but I'm getting things done when it needs to be done, not when, I could have had a timeline for the next couple of months so I could be like preparing for our New Year's marketing, not preparing for Black Friday that's this week. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, I still think like it's valid for me to be like, okay, like, thanks, I appreciate that. And yes, I know I'm working hard, but I'm not comfortable with necessarily what I'm doing, if that makes sense. It's not necessarily, I feel like, I'm not giving myself the credit, but when somebody's telling me I'm not giving myself enough credit, it's like, yeah, but do you know what my, like, accounts look like, or do you know what my workflow looks like, or this or that, to where it's like, all right, if there's some types of issues in your life, like why do people always tell you like don't worry about that? Kind of, that's how I feel like it sounds to me when people are like, give yourself more credit or be kinder. It's like they're saying, that stuff doesn't really matter, it doesn't really matter, or, it's okay. But I'm like, nah, it's not okay. Like, you know what I mean? If like I want so much more.
And that makes sense. I see both sides of the same coin, because there is this constant iteration process of getting better and refining, becoming more efficient, like working towards these bigger, grander dreams and this vision that we have for ourselves, our purpose in our lives. But at the same time, if we're those type of people that always work towards that thing, right?
Yeah. When is it ever over?
Exactly. When are we ever going to get the chance to celebrate or to be kinder towards ourselves? And I also think the kindness part is important to me, because the journey needs to be enjoyable. Like, I'm going to get there either way.
That's true.
Am I going to look all scraggly and like beat down when I get there? Or am I going to be celebrating?
But you know what? That's why I think it's still an issue to me when I'm like, okay, yeah, I could take credit, but I still think there's so many more things. And I think that's valid for me to think that, because the journey doesn't look good to me. I think because I'm procrastinating, or because I'm like, everything I'm doing, I'm getting it done, but I'm doing it like frantically, or like at the last minute, or whatever it is. It doesn't feel organized. And so a lot of the things I think I need to be doing more of, or better, or whatever, is because it will make, if I'm continuing in this journey of like my work and growing and different things, it will make that more enjoyable.
Yeah.
It just sucks like thinking about doing the work, but like at the same time, it's like, all right, if I'm waking up every day and I feel like, frantic or whatever, I get it. It's like, okay, I have to be okay with it because this is my reality. But there's also,
Yeah, it's a give and take, but it's like, when are we allowed on this journey, when our ducks are not in a row, but we're working towards it, to give ourselves that space and that grace to have credit, to be, to celebrate it, but also to still be on this journey very actively working towards something.
When are some times, or like with what types of tasks or things do you think you do celebrate yourself or give yourself credit?
I love doing what I said I'm going to do. So if I say, like, at the beginning of the week, I'm going to finish these proposals, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I finish all of that, like, I'm like, yo, like, you did that shit. Like, that feels good. Or whenever.
Okay. So giving yourself credit can look like you just having like that quick little combo with yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. I do that a lot
feeling,
too.
Or even the feeling of actually like completing those things and getting them done. Like, I said I was going to, get better with my follow-up game. And so I've been working on those things, and it just feels good to do it and to not just be talking. Even if I'm just talking to myself, but I'm like, Carlie, we got to get better at this. And then I actually get better. Like, that feels good in those moments. So that's just one instance I can think of off top.
Oh, mine might be only the same thing, because it's the very same. Like, when I put in like really like 9 good deep work hours on Monday, and like I felt so good that I like told somebody like, man, I got so much done today. Like, I felt good. And maybe that's the me giving myself credit. But again, it's like, that had to be such a big thing, that for me to do that. But what else? It's still a certain level of something. If this makes sense what I'm saying, like, there's still a certain level of something happening where I'm really going to like feel really good like that. And it does go down to having done what I said I was going to do. Because then the next day I'm like, oh, I didn't do as much because I ended up running around and errands and stuff like that. Yeah. But then I felt like, ugh. And another good thing to think about is that, in life, period, in your journey, whatever you're doing, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether, you're going to work or whatever you're doing, it's the ups and downs of like your work and your family life, personal life, all that stuff all the time. And so now what I'm trying to practice more of, Carlie, is on those days where it was like, dang, I ran a lot of errands. And it's like, I felt like I was busy, but shoot, looking at my books, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, dang, I didn't really do anything. But being able to think, hey, I went ham like yesterday, and letting that still let me be okay. Or thinking about how, hey, it's not like it's just always like a bunch of down days. Like, so kind of, I think a big part of the giving yourself credit that I need to maybe focus more on is not the giving myself more credit, but being less hard about, or whatever the opposite of that is, like less hard about when you do kind of chill.
It's a balance. And I was going to say that that's actually the other time that I feel really good and like give myself credit is when I give myself what I need. Like, I took a nap yesterday. Yesterday was a super amazing day, but I really needed a nap. And I was proud that I allowed myself to do that. And what didn't feel like, no, you have to also do all these things. Like I listened to my body, I listened to what it was, and that enabled me to show up in these spaces how I wanted to show up in them.
What about in some other ways, like health or like working out or friendships, relationships? What are some things maybe that we could look at as benchmarks of things like, yo, like I'm doing good with that, or giving yourself credit, not just thinking about work stuff?
Yeah. So in relationships, I'm making an effort of like reconnecting with people that I haven't that I value, but that I just cannot talk to all of the time. There are very few people that I can talk to all the time, but I've been making it a point to follow up, either have coffee meetings if they live here in LA or around the area, or to call them, or even just to text them, like send them a very thoughtful text message or a voice note, or even write them something and like mail it. And so I've been doing that for like the past month, and that feels good, just to like send that to like let somebody know I was thinking about them or that they came across my heart.
But how are you celebrating yourself for doing that? Or is that still just you saying I was going to do something and doing it?
Well,
so being excited.
That, but like just being excited and feeling good about taking that time to intentionally pour into friendships and relationships that I value. Like that's, I mean, to me, that's a celebration to just hear about how they're doing and to share in that space. You're asking like ways to celebrate myself?
No, I'm saying how do you give yourself credit for other things you're doing? So like you did it, but like how are you giving yourself credit? Or like what is happening? Just being like, yeah, again, with the same like kind of talking to yourself about it thing.
I was gonna say, even when I think about working out, like my birthday's coming up shortly. So I'm super hype about that and thinking through like my health goals and where I want my body to be, my life to be. Because birthdays are great like check-ins for me, like Earth Days, another revolution around the sun, whatever you want to refer them to.
Happy solar nexus, sis. Golly, please keep that.
Queen.
I don't. Queen, you right, sis. I messed it up. That's what the ones that's really just trying to be fake. Sis, damn, Queen, my bad.
Get it right, Lex.
I don't know how to speak Hotep.
But I think it's, well, lately I've been treating myself with peppermint mochas. I'm not even gonna lie, because those taste like Christmas to me. So if I like meet my goals in the week, I'm like, I can treat myself with a peppermint mocha. You
know, there's a term for that, right? That's a whole nother episode. We'll get into that later. When you do good, and so you see doing the opposite of that as a treat.
Oh yeah,
there's a thing about that.
We'll have to have an entire episode on that.
Yeah, I got to think about it. It's called moral something, and it's also the reason why. Sorry guys, tangent, but learn something. Somebody Google it and tell me what it is. Moral something. It's also the reason why like a lot of priests and people in certain positions of power, their whole focus is so holy and good that's why they're so like extra with the crazy shit that they do.
Wow.
Because it's like, you know, I'm straight, like I'm straight, so I can do this crazy stuff.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Yeah, I listened to a whole epised about that.
I think most of it is just like kind of like atta girls, like telling myself like, yeah, like just feeling good about it in the moment.
So, and treating yourself then. Because giving, but sometimes I don't know if giving myself credit, like if I do things like, for me, I love food, so if I order something crazy or like, you know, go out to eat or something like that, and I can say, man, it's because I'm, you know, feeling good about how things are going or whatever. It might be because of that, but sometimes that's just me wilding out. But I think that's probably it. Like the times I do decide, like I'm gonna chill or enjoy my relaxation or whatever, is giving myself credit to. But I do feel guilty a lot of times if I'm like celebrating myself or saying like I'm gonna chill because I'm giving myself like the credit or I've done a lot. Just because of what we said earlier, like there's still so much to always do that. There's still certain things that I feel like need to be checked off before I'm like, okay, like I can chill for a second or I feel good about this or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's a slippery slope, but I do feel guilty too. I'm like, because yesterday I was like, man, this day feels good. And I woke up this morning and started checking emails and I was like, oh shit, I didn't check my emails yesterday.
Right.
And there's just a whole bunch of other things to do.
Right.
So in that same vein, like we talked like about celebrating and feeling good about things, but what keeps you from celebrating? We talked a little bit about some of them, like knowing that there's always more stuff to do, but what else keeps you from like really being like, yo, I did that shit?
This mindset I have that the things I'm doing are kind of regular. And when I say regular, I don't mean like they're pointless or meaningless, but you know, this is my work, or like this is what my path that I chose to do these things. And because I've always taken so much risk, I was just thinking the other day about how I was like, yeah, my biggest decisions, I never contemplated them much. Like, I was thinking, like, how, when I moved here, like, where did I think I was going to live? Like, because I just crashed at a friend's house until, then I found an apartment, whatever. But I'm like, I just will do things. I just started a business. I just moved. I just moved again. I just did this or that. And so for me, it's like, yeah, like I'm doing cool stuff because that's what I'm going to do. Like, that's just how I am. I was going to do that anyway. So it's kind of hard for me to understand, like, why is this so special? Or something like, for example, when people say congratulations to certain things, and I'm like, congratulations, like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's just what I did was like, it wasn't like congratulations, like I won an award. It's like congratulations, like, because you're working. Like, okay, I'm just working. I'm going to work.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to relate when it seems like people are excited, but I'm like, well, I'm not that excited about it. Like those types of things.
It's like getting congratulations on things that you feel like you're expected to do anyways, or the things that, like, for regular things.
Or it's just regular. Like, hey, I'm going to be on a panel. Congratulations. To me, that's not necessarily congratulations because I'm on a panel. Like, I didn't get paid $20K to come do a keynote. That might be different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, that's why it's different because, like, I'm volunteering my time to go sit out here and talk for, like, whatever it is or whatever. Like, it's cool, but anybody can, like, call somebody or try to set up something or do that. And maybe that's my thing. It's like, if I feel like it's something that anybody can kind of put their stuff into and do it, okay, like, why is that congratulations per se?
Yeah.
But I get it for some things, or I get why people would think that, but it kind of bothers me when it feels like somebody else is more excited about my own stuff than me.
Yeah, I would feel like that. I feel like that happens a lot. People are excited, and I love them being excited, but I also kind of feel the same way about things. Like, yeah, like
like, it's like, okay, like, don't hype it up too crazy. Like, that's cool, but like, don't hype me. Don't hype it.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. My mind is like racing as we say that, and I'm just like thinking about all these instances where stuff like that has happened. And me thinking that. I think it's also for me kind of tying into that, but a little bit different. It's like I feel like I have this, purpose on my life, and I'm working towards those things, and I'm not there yet, y'all. Like, I am doing a lot of dope things and giving myself credit and being very grateful for where I am and where I've come from, but like, I'm not there yet. And so sometimes, like, I don't want to get too caught up in, like, now when I know there's so much more work to be done.
Or it may be that you're, and not you as in you, but that a person is feeling unclear about what that higher purpose is. And so it's like, what am I giving myself credit for? Because what am I doing? Like, how am I really affecting people or helping or using my skills? Or, if you don't feel like you're necessarily in an alignment or in anything that's air quote special to you, like, you might not be giving yourself credit for what you are doing, which may be going to work and providing for yourself or your family or whatever else, right? Like, you're still out here doing things.
Yeah. And so in these moments when we're struggling with, like, celebrating or giving ourselves credit, it's like, looking back, like, what actually, like, are you doing?
That's the funny thing, because when people have said to me, like, well, you're getting things done, like, you should give yourself more credit, I'm the one who does know. Like I said before, I'm the one who does know if yesterday I spent like 7 hours going ham or if I spent 20 minutes doing something, right? And so for me, the biggest issue, I think, is I think more about those 20-minute days. And a regular day, though, for me does look very productive because it's like I'm the project manager of my life. I guess everybody is, so that was dumb, but
not dumb.
But for me, it's like I have to be a project manager of my life, like my personal life, and I have to be like the boss of the place that I'm working in. So it's like everything, whereas, it may be like going to work or going to church, going to wherever, everything I do, I'm like in charge of. And so my whole day is like, feels like I'm working, if that makes sense, or managing the time of what I'm doing. And so really I need to give myself more credit because I'm up at between 5 and 6. Then I'm at the gym. Then I'm coffee, breakfast, write my goals. Then I do my biz dev. I have whatever meetings. I'm on my computer. So I'm getting things done, and that's pretty much what my days look like. Either that or totally opposite of where I'm running around town everywhere, whether it's meetings or just like my Saturday day might be like a Wednesday where I'm running personal errands and stuff like that. But at the end of it, instead of really thinking about like what am I actually doing in a day, I like to kind of look at it as like at least the week to be like, all right, did I accomplish certain things for this week? Because my days are kind of like different.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I feel like mine, like I'll have those days where I am massively productive and then the next day it's like not. And it's kind of like a cycle for me, but it does start with the routine. Like I know the mornings I teach really early, and if not, I'm up early and meditating. I've been much more consistent with that. Shout out to the Oprah and Deepak 21-day challenge. I've been doing, because those are like 20 minutes long. I only normally do 10.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of myself for that. Should give myself credit there.
And that's good because, again, it's like, okay, giving myself credit for the days that I rested or giving myself credit for going to get my nails done. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be the work. It can be like, oh, shoot, like I, got myself together. You know what I mean? So it could be giving yourself credit for everything you're doing because everything you're doing is the decision you made to do. And so I guess that kind of helps you make a good decision if you're thinking about it like that. But, like, you can give yourself credit for everything.
Or not. which is why we're here.
And if you're not giving yourself credit for anything,
why not?
What does that look like? I don't know.
Yeah, like but also even then I feel like more often than not I hear people get caught up more in like, oh, I'm not doing enough or oh, this isn't working out. Like they might actually be working, those 9 hours of deep work like every single day, but things aren't working out how they want them to. And so it's like, well, why aren't we okay with where we are in the process of the journey?
And maybe that's the thing is we need to give ourselves credit for the journey part and for being a part of the process versus giving ourselves credit for outcomes. Maybe if we're giving ourselves credit for the efforts, because it's quite frankly the consistent efforts that actually are getting you to success. That's something that I really learned actually within the last year is that I'm always being hard on myself because I'm like, I didn't finish this thing or this thing is still here or always looking at what there is to do. But it's better if I'm saying, all right, I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to touch this every day or I'm going to touch this once a week. I'm going to do this and actually doing that, right? Being consistent to routine and processes then makes it where that's where you give yourself credit for sticking to that routine. That's where you give yourself credit for being consistent in the process, not waiting till, oh, the event happened at the end of the year. Now I can feel happy and give myself credit for doing something. No, you've been building to that, right? And so making sure that the building steps are what you're giving yourself credit for. Maybe that's what like makes it where you can be happy and have a better relationship with the process when you always have more to do, because you always will.
Yeah, I love that. And even if you do have that big event or that peak or that next level that you're trying to get to, 95% of your time is going to be that process, that journey, like working towards whatever that thing is. And so I really love that it's finding joy and finding that credit and the celebrations in your everyday consistency in working towards that thing.
Look, I just came up with it. And it's funny because like when we're thinking about planning episodes and stuff, it's like, well, how, we're thinking about ourselves, right? Like, how do we deal with this? And like, why does it? Like, I always feel like it's hard to feel good about stuff because there's so much. And that's what it is like paying attention to the steps and like the consistency of, hey, I did a little bit today.
Yeah.
Is much easier to do than thinking about how overwhelming that big thing is.
It's kind of like people who, let's just start with a mile. So if you've never ran a day in your life, like, running a couple of feet will be a big deal. And gradually you get to where a mile is not a big deal. But if you just looking at it from the biggest point of view, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Not that I advocate for eating elephants, but one of my project managers in construction used to tell me that. He asked me that one day. I was like, first of all, why are we eating elephants? He's like, it's not the point. Elephants are huge, but you have to eat them one bite at a time because I was getting so overwhelmed by the whole project that I was like, I don't even know where to start. And then it's like analysis paralysis. And I was just like nervous. He was like, you're psyching yourself out. Just take one step, like every day.
Yeah. And I think also, though, on the flip side of that is why I can get frustrated because, like I said, that 7-hour day and then a 30-minute day, my problem is if it doesn't feel consistent, then that's when I get uncomfortable. And so I'm like, why can't I just have consistent, at least the same thing every day? And that's for me where I need to change my relationship, where it doesn't have to be like that. But like, I'm like, bro, even if I did like 3 hours of like just straight up going in, every day, instead of it being like a real up day, real low day.
Yeah.
But like, why does that matter to me? You know what I mean? And like, why am I so uncomfortable with that, but still not necessarily doing it? And so that's kind of what I'm like trying to figure out. But I think it just gets uncomfortable with giving yourself credit, because there's just, if you're ambitious, it's hard sometimes to be just okay with where you are. But one thing that I found is a great way to combat that and to better give myself credit is to actually track my wins and pay more attention to those wins. Because like I said before, I think it's a lot easier to harp on what you consider to be like the failures.
Yeah. How do you track your wins?
There was one year that I had a jar where every time something cool happened or good happened, I would write it on paper and put it in my jar. I did that for a year, and then I dumped it out and like looked at everything. And I did that because right before I made it, I think I was tweeting or something about this similar thing where it's like, man, it feels like all that time goes by and it's like, what did I do? And I don't like that feeling. But then somebody said, oh, well, for my class or at something, we did this thing where we had a jar and we put stuff in. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Just to see if like, is it just a lot of stuff happening and I'm not just really paying attention to it, or am I like really cruising? And so I did that for like a year. Then I read them and I was like, dang, like I did have like a good year. Like putting it all out was like, oh shit, like I did some cool stuff. And so it was kind of a reminder that I was doing some cool stuff. Is there anything else that you've done?
Well, writing them down in my planner. Like, I like that the passion planner has at the end of the week. It's like, what good things happened this week. And so you actually have to sit back and think about it. And also the reflections at the end of the month.
Oh yeah, I like that
like
too.
That's really helpful. I try to write them down in my journal too as things happen and as I get excited about them, like writing down like last night how I was feeling, like, oh my God, like this happened and this happened. And I was so hyped. That's actually how I be writing in my journal. I tried to do the jar thing. Shout out to Lala. She got me a jar. I tried real hard. I did not finish it. But another way, which is actually very unintentional, and one cool thing I think about social media is like, I like how sometimes I get reminders on Facebook, but mostly like Snapchat. Like I was on Snap the other day and it was like, oh, here's what you were doing 3 years ago on this day.
Oh, yeah.
And it was when I was in Peru. And I remember like, oh, I did speak at ABAC and that was freaking fire. Wow, that's really cool. Like, come on, CC.
Same with when I'm chatting with Damo and Kyle.
Shout out to Damo.
And we're hanging out. And sometimes wherever the conversation is going, I'll be like, yeah. And then that time, like the Gypsy King, blah, blah, blah. Or it'll be like, yeah, like when I did bullfighting and blah, blah, blah. Or like I have all these stories and it's like, oh shit. Like it's a reminder to myself, like, yo, I done a lot of stuff like in my life, period. And like giving myself credit for that, because if I really thought about it, it's like 4 different lives of stuff. Like, why wouldn't I feel like, life is awesome and, I've gotten to do anything I wanted to do. So I think that's cool. And I think it's like, I don't want to say like talking more necessarily or talking to people more, but, tell your stories or just reflecting on your stories. The planner thing I love too, because what it did, because it has that space where it says put the things that happen, just like you said, now I started, when things happen, I will write it down. Yeah. So it's like, then when I do get to that part, I might think about it. Or when I get to that part, I'm like, dang, what did happen this week? To me, I was like, shoot, that's kind of sad. Like, why can't I think of anything to write on this good things that happen? And so that's why I started writing them down, like as stuff happened, because it's like, oh, I can remember this. Like so much stuff happened, but that's not where I'm focusing. And maybe it doesn't necessarily mean that you just focus all on the good stuff per se, but just having a reframed narrative that those things are awesome. Like, and what's my relationship with the things I'm working on in a way that doesn't necessarily tamper that.
I think that's mostly what this is like reframing our perspective in a way that doesn't take away from anything that we're doing, good or bad, but also doesn't make things that black or white, like this good or that bad. Yeah,
like you don't have to make a box for yourself, but we do that. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. So those are some ways that you can give yourself more credit or practice, I guess, recognizing where you can give yourself more credit. But another big thing to go along with that is recognizing when you're diminishing your own accomplishments or wins, or, you know, when you're not giving yourself the credit that you should. And sometimes that's kind of sneaky, like Carlie said, when she said, what was it, small, you called it?
Yeah, I was like, small accomplishments.
Yeah, calling it a small accomplishment when she had like a full day of getting so much stuff done. And so language, I think, is very important. Catching yourself calling what you're doing small, catching yourself saying little. Oh, yeah, I have a little site, you know, where we do this. Like, no, it's not little. And why are you doing that? Is it mostly and probably because you don't feel confident and comfortable with that thing yet? And that may be something to discover too. But, you know, if you're talking about things that you're working on, things that you're doing, checking that language to make sure you're not, you know, diminishing the win in that.
And language is so important. Like, it might seem like a little thing to just call something little, but if you're telling yourself that every single day, your brain's going to start believing you. And also thinking about over qualifying yourself. Like, I've met so many people who, you know, will hand me a card but be like, oh my God, please don't judge my website. Like, I just started my company. Oh my God, I haven't done this. Or, you know, oh, it's just me right now. Like, I don't have. And so you don't have to over qualify yourself or put all these caveats on who you are or what you're working on, because if your heart's in it, and you're, you know, doing the best that you can, that's really all that you can do. And you, like, over-qualifying it or trying to make it not sound that bad, like, makes me just be like, huh? Like,
that's a really good one, Carlie. Because I notice that when people do that to me, and I am like, ugh, like, I'm about to judge all your confidence, because people be like, well, you probably don't this, but, or, well, I know you're not gonna.
Or I know it's not as cool as yours, but.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And it's just like, all right. Like, I don't even really want to talk to people when they say stuff like that. Like, I don't care for it. And I think that people may be doing that as a way to compliment you. But it's like, why are you kind of putting yourself down to like hype me? I don't even like that energy, even if I'm the one you're kind of hyping. Like, I don't like that energy. So that was a really good one. And then other ways that we do that is when somebody does say, like, man, that was great. Are you doing good? And your first thing that you say is, you know, well, you know, yeah, it was cool, but, you know, still got a long way to go. Or when it's like, when people answer like, yep, I'm still here, still making it, when you're asking them how they're doing. Things like that I notice, and I try to stop saying, because it's like, why are you in like survival mode like that? I mean, and maybe you are, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't like talking like that when it's like, oh, how you doing? Whew, man, I'm busy. Like, I hate work and I hate my life and everything is so hard. Like, you don't want it to sound like that. And if that's really how you feel, again, there's other things to think about. But watching just how you're saying things when people are complimenting or talking to you, or how you're reflecting on yourself, your day, your work, whatever it is.
Yep. No, I love that. And also thinking like, oh, I'm trying to work on this thing. Like, I'm working on this thing, or I'm doing this thing. I'm not trying to start a business. I'm starting a business. I am working on this thing. So just working on that. The other one I was thinking about is when you give people accolades, or, you know, just praising them for doing things, and they're like, oh, you know, I don't need that. Like, this is just what I'm supposed to do. Which is fine, but if you always say that and you're never able to accept a compliment, like, there's a reason, or in my head, there's a reason, or something that's a little bit deeper. So also just learning to accept those things, like good or bad, maybe not making you or breaking you, but also just learning how to receive them.
Yeah, even just thank you so much. Like,
thank you.
I put a lot into that. You know what I mean? Like, give yourself credit. You worked hard.
You deserve it.
Yeah, you're working hard for the things you're doing. You're working hard for where you are. Yes, there's plenty that we need to keep doing, and we are doing, but take some time this week and just give yourself more credit.
You're worth it.
Or think about places in your life where you should be giving yourself more credit. If anybody has any other tips or ideas about giving yourself credit, celebrating yourself and your wins, hit us up on Instagram or Twitter at Carlie's Couch, or CC Fierce, Lextopia, or Carlie Carpio on Twitter. And just let us know how you feel about the conversation, and, you know, where you feel like you are with it.
Yeah, I would love to hear, and also to think about ways as you might have grown to give yourself more credit, or thinking through like, damn, I actually don't. And this is kind of what that was, because I am working on that in my own life. And then we have anything else?
That's it.
We have our shout out this week. I changed it up. I'm super hype about this hoodie that I'm wearing. If you're not watching the video, you can't see it.
Oh, I was like, why are you playing with your hair right now so much?
Because I want to.
I wasn't looking at her. I was like, what's going on? Because my peripheral.
I'm trying to move it out the way so I can read this shirt because I don't actually remember what it says.
It says, warning to be proud. Oh, well, first it says, Moraine X, warning, to be proud in your own skin is extremely powerful and menacing at the same time.
And so this is a collaboration between Asia Jackson and We Are Uprisers out here in LA. And I found it because Asia Jackson is a Black and Filipina actress. And she started a hashtag on Twitter a couple years ago called Maganda Moraine X. I might have messed up that pronunciation, but here we are. And it's about colorism in the Filipino community. She said she's always felt too Black in the Filipino community, but not Black enough in Black spaces. And so she created this hashtag for people to share their stories about being biracial or triracial or whatever you are and not feeling like you're enough of each one. And so just learning to be comfortable and confident in who you are. And it's super dope. Maganda Moraine X, and it's We Are Uprisers. Love the hoodie. I'm not going to be really extra and turn around, but it's super cute on the back and very thoughtful. I like to spend my money and things like that. So shout out to her and that movement. And she's in her early 20s. I'm like, bro, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's super inspiring.
That is cool. And you can do it too.
Hey.
Question of the week for everybody this week is, where do I need to rest?
I need to rest in the knowing that as I chase my personal legend, that the universe is conspiring together to help me achieve it. And that's very Paulo Coelho.
Paulo.
Exactly. But truly, like, in this journey of purpose and faith, like, just knowing that as I'm walking in alignment, that all of these things are working out for me. Like, it has so far. Everything happens in synchronicity. And so stopping to second guessing myself and just resting in that faith that everything is working out as it should.
Okay. And I would say that I need to rest my mind more and more intentional, like times of not overthinking or just thinking about like what needs to be done and just kind of taking more time to just completely like chill.
Yeah. So where do y'all need to rest? I'd love to hear that too at Carlie's Couch.
And we appreciate you, of course, listening to the episode or watching the episode. The full thing is on tape this week.
Hey.
I know I was tripping last couple times, but we back. And we also want to remind you to leave us 5 stars and an awesome review so that we can read them on our podcast, so we can spread to new listeners, new people. 2020 is coming up, and we trying to expand, y'all. So help us help you. Help us.
Help
please.
You. And share this with somebody in your life if you think that they don't give themselves enough credit.
On the sub message. Bye, guys.
Bye.